Hey, what's up, kid? Haven't done one of these in a bit, so just got done feeding you, and you're kind of fussing in your sleep right now. Thought I'd just check in for a few minutes. So I'm back to work now. The past 2 weeks have been a blur. Just literally feels like they went by in a blink of an eye. And yesterday I was trucking all day, as indicated by my trucker hat. I don't work for Reeve, but we use them sometimes for some deliveries. So yesterday, was trucking all day, and yeah, now it's the weekend. You're 5 weeks old today, and I'm 41 years old. Yeah, 41 years young, and I can see how everyone says time goes by so fast, and it's kind of making sense now that incrementally each year is just a smaller and smaller percentage of my total life. I mean, when you're 10 years old, 1 year is like that's 10% of your total life, but by the time you're 41, a year is just it's just a smaller fraction of the total. So I can see, experientially feels like it's going faster, so that makes sense. Right now, your mama is at the stove buying some cakes for Mother's Day, which is tomorrow. It's her first year as a mama. And yeah, got her these flowers up there. Check them out. I want documentation of this. Yeah, nice little bouquet for Mother's Day. And yeah, just been we're still reading, finishing off Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Um, and yeah, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts because they've been having me do driving also to and from work. It's about a couple hours a day. I get to sit in the car, so yeah, I try to use that time to learn as much as I can. And podcasting is huge now. It's kind of like the way talk radio has evolved. So, listen to this podcast about the day the dinosaurs died. And on that day, apparently, this asteroid named, it's called like Baptisma or something, collided into the Earth right around where the Gulf of Mexico is. The asteroid was 6 miles wide, 6 miles long, and it was traveling something like 20,000 times faster than the fastest rifle bullet. And when it hit the Earth, it hit with the strength of 100 million megatons, which is it's like a hundred million hydrogen bombs. I mean, it's like the kind of strength that's just incomprehensible. And it bored into the Earth's crust 20 miles deep. And when the Earth's crust rebounded, there was a peak of rock that was momentarily taller than Mount Everest. And when you have an object traveling that fast, like you shoot a bullet through ballistic gel or water, in between the water and the bullet, momentarily, when the bullet just splits the water apart, there's a vacuum right there. So that's what the asteroid did to the Earth. Created a vacuum, and apparently if you were standing at the right place slash wrong place and you looked up as the asteroid entered the atmosphere, you would be able to see into space from the Earth. So there'd be this daylight sky and then a gap where it was just a vacuum, no atmosphere, and you could see straight into outer space. And then the asteroid hit, of course, and when it hit, it created this huge tidal wave. And when it bored into the crust, it it liquefied and then gasified all of the rock and just shot that into outer space. And there was a jet going halfway towards the moon, and apparently some of this debris hit the moon, some of this debris hit Mars, and scientists are thinking some of this debris actually went as far as to hit the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. So it was a pretty intense impact, and immediately all of the gasified rock, once it cooled, it turned into glass, and the Earth's magnetic field pulled it back in and created this really intense meteor shower, where all these glass particles were re-entering and burning up in the atmosphere, and there were so many of them that it heated up the atmosphere all over the globe to the temperature of like 1200 degrees in some places. So it's like a pizza oven. I think the amount of energy was 10 kilojoules per square meter. So yeah, that's it. That's basically enough to put a 10 kilojoules per square meter is enough to put a pizza oven on broil. So it's about 1200 degrees, and that happened within a couple of 3 hours all over the Earth. Meaning, I mean, that temperature, once it starts to get that hot, there's no hiding from that. That's hot enough to literally boil the blood inside of anybody or anything that's alive at that time. So even though that event killed 99.9999999% of living things on Earth, forest fires and all that, it only killed 75% of the species. So 25% of species, which was at that 0.0000001% of living things, that comprised 25% of the species, which eventually helped the Earth recover and get to where we are right now. But yeah, I just thought that was really interesting, because the new information that came out from this one dig site by this archaeologist, his name is De Palma, not the movie director, who makes great movies, by the way. You should check out some Brian De Palma movies. Yeah, instead of like the asteroid hitting and then there being a nuclear winter that lasted 90,000 years or whatever, and then that 90,000 years later, the last dinosaur dies and he's all cold and shivering. Apparently, this new story is that most dinosaurs died all over the world pretty much instantaneously because of this impact. And that makes sense according to the archaeological record, because if you dig down deep enough all over the world, you'll find this one little thin layer. They call it the KT layer. I think it separates the Cretaceous period from the Tertiary period, or the Paleogene, I think it's called. And below that layer of like charcoal and iridium, which iridium is like, it's very rare on Earth but very common in space. So there's this layer, kind of charcoal rock iridium, that represents the day the dinosaurs died. And below that, so before that day, below that, because of the law of superimposition, the newer stuff is on top. Below that, there are all the dinosaur fossils, but above that there are no dinosaur fossils. So evidence seems to indicate that they all died in that same day. So yeah, I thought that was pretty crazy. Anyway, you should look it up if you ever got some time to kill or want to know how we got here to this point. I mean, even past that huge extinction event, which, it made the Earth toxic for a while because the asteroid impact, it vaporized a lot of limestone, which created, and it released sulfur into the atmosphere, and then it eventually turned into sulfuric acid in the clouds, which rained down as acid rain, enough to strip leaves and just leach nutrients from the soil. I mean, the Earth really messed the Earth up, and so it's pretty amazing that life still persevered and survived past to that point and evolved and progressed to where we're sitting here with all this comfort and technology around us, and language and progress and everything. And yeah, to the point where you are alive right now. So, life had to go through a lot in order for you to get here. And you're part of this unbroken chain of life, stretching all the way back to the beginning of life on this planet. So that's kind of no pressure or anything, but that's what you represent. So, try to make it worth it. Try to do something to contribute to that if you can. If not, I guess just try to have fun, be good. But yeah, so there's that. And learned about that. Also learned a little bit about artificial intelligence in autonomous vehicles. So now, at this point in human history, people are trying to program automobiles to be self-driving. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's just kind of like why climb a mountain because it's there kind of a thing. But maybe by the time that you're old enough to understand all of this, maybe there will be autonomous vehicles. But as of now, they're still kind of wrestling with a lot of the issues that they have, because the general notion is that driving is very easy and that people are just bad drivers. But actually, driving, if in a computer program sense, is very difficult to approximate, because it's a lot of object identification and object approximation as far as the physics of different moving objects around the driver, and including the relationship of the physics of those objects with the physics of the vehicle that the driver is in. And this is all happening in real time, just kind of automatically being calculated by your conscious mind. I heard it described once as kind of like looking at a painting, for example, where you're looking at the whole image, you're looking at the details, and this is all happening at the same time. So that's kind of what driving is like. I mean, people do that pretty much automatically, but to program a computer using a camera or slash GPS to do that is it's another challenge entirely. So they're wrestling with the challenges of programming that. Also, image identification, like when you have a bicycle connected to the back of the bike, that's really no longer a bicycle. That should be considered by the driving computer to be part of that car. Also, there's an issue with programming assertiveness, because when you drive, you have to assert your presence sometimes on the road in order to drive safely. Like, if there is someone that is merging into your lane, for example, another car that's merging into your lane, and they don't see you and it would be unsafe to stop, you need to assert your presence in that lane. And it's kind of like a game of chicken. You can't stop, because if you stop, then it could cause an accident in that particular situation. So you need to actually just assert your presence so that the person merging into the lane stops merging and gets back in their lane. And to program a computer like that, an artificial general intelligence, or I guess it would be an artificial specific intelligence, to play a game of chicken and not stop, that's another challenge that these programmers are kind of grasping with. So I think it's a long ways away, and I'd actually, as a mechanic, personally, I say never trust a machine, because machines will betray you every time, and usually at the worst time possible, which is why there are mechanics. It's called job security. Things are going to break down on a long enough timeline. And there's also the issue of these self-driving cars being hacked, used to assassinate people. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's just a whole can of worms. But ultimately, I think people are doing it just because it's there, kind of like, climbing a mountain. Anyway, that's about it. I'm going to keep trying to upload these as much as I can. Also, check out, I uploaded a couple of conversations between myself and your grandpa, your Lolo, Pop. So, if you want to know a little bit about him and what he was like, the uploads are here on the channel. So, yeah, that's about it. You're right here. You're sleeping like a baby. And yeah, we're just trying. You know, again, we're just trying to keep up with you, one day at a time, one diaper at a time. So yeah. Anyway, that's it for now. Talk to you later. All right.